As I said at the top, warnings about election security are just at this boiling point right now on both sides. There are reports that the White House, worried about fraud in the midterms, doesn't just want to back ID requirements for registering to vote. They're also now apparently pushing for a complete ban on mail-in voting, except for, of course, folks in the military or folks with disabilities, et cetera. There's another election bill working through the House right now that is being described as the Save America Act on steroids. It goes way further than that. We're going to talk about that here in a second. And then on the other side, you have Democrats openly accusing Republicans of trying to sort of steal. Not try to sort of steal. They're accusing them of trying to steal the election and saying that they're, pointing to evidence of fraud or pointing to fraud without evidence, and basically trying to make this an issue to undermine the results of the election. And it turns out they have some sympathy. They're getting some sympathy in the media. The New York Times has this story up this morning that very much, you read this lead, guys. You read this lead. The strict voting identification measure that Republicans have pushed through the House is just their opening salvo in a broader legislative effort aimed at keeping control of Congress this fall and helping amplify the president's false claims of mass voter fraud in the event that they lose. That is the New York Times taking a side, saying this is all.
What do you mean? Wait, hold on. To act like this is new, the New York Times is an appendage of the DNC. So, I just don't. That to me is not any kind of shocker.
Well, I feel like it's very clear that people do have concerns about the security of voting. Two things can be true at once. You can want voter ID to vote and also not, be of the mind that the 2020 election was stolen and that, we're trying to steal it again or something like this.
The false argument in this is that it all began and ended with 2020. Voter integrity on the right has been an issue for decades. Barack Obama himself, during his primary, joked about how my city, Chicago, does not have a great record when it comes to election integrity. He joked about how Chicago historically stole elections. We've talked about this, Nixon, Kennedy, going back to Tammany Hall. The idea that this is a new phenomena is what Democrats want you to believe. They want to point to 2020 and say, this is all. No, I've been in elections since 1994 is my first one. We've been concerned about election integrity ever since then. That was my first, and it goes way back before that. It was an issue in the 60s. This idea, Carter Baker did a commission in 2005 where it was a big issue then. So there is no credence to this idea that it just became a Republican issue. Literally, Jimmy Carter talked about it in the Carter Baker Commission in 2005.
Dan, you're sitting there quiet, and I know you have things to say. So what's your response here?
Well, I just think it's somewhat crazy the way both parties here are heading down what I think is somewhat going to be a dangerous path, which is, to Sean's point, there has always been election integrity focused by the Republicans. But there have been times that it has sure felt like those efforts have been used to try to make it slightly more difficult, ironically only in Democratic precincts, to vote. Now, look, these are shenanigans that have gone on for years, right? Go back to 2004 in Ohio, Republican-controlled state at the time, still is today, where you had these strong Democratic precincts that had 2 voting areas. And then you had rural Republican areas that had 20, right? And so you have these super duper long lines in Democratic precincts where some people will say, look, I got to get to work, got to get to school, whatever, can't vote. And if it's really easy, then you're turning your people out, and through the line. And so in the Democrats' opinion, this is a solution kind of in search of a problem, which is they believe after 2020, when the allegation were that the election was stolen, but again, no proof was ever presented, that, and we've talked a little bit about this, I cannot emphasize enough how much Democrats believe that Republicans are teeing up all of these allegations of illegal immigrants may vote, and that not only will they say that the results in certain areas are questionable, but then after Mike Johnson refused to speak the woman from Arizona, that they are going to intentionally delay seating people to preserve the majority for as long as humanly possible. All I can just tell the audience is I cannot, like, I thought it was a conspiracy theory in the fringes of our party, but it's not just Mark Warner. It's so many other people. Barack Obama, the New York Times is now in on it. Our party is absolutely convinced Republicans are going to attempt what happened in 2020, which is to just put up as many, obstacles as possible to certifying an election.
Here's the thing so here is the thing that doesn't hold water. When it comes to voter ID, so the Republicans have asked for two things: voter ID to vote and proof of citizenship. On voter ID, as I said, I did a show with three very diverse Democrats: Julian, very legally steeped; Mike Nellis, very progressive; Johanna Maska, who is a Biden staffer. Every one of them agreed. This is not a position that's extreme. Okay. Number two, when you listen to every single leading Democrat, Chuck Schumer, Hillary Clinton, Barack Obama, all of them have said that voter ID is a smart thing. It's just suddenly they've all decided now to call it Chuck Crow 2.0. I'm now rebranding this as Chuck Schumer's thing. But Chuck Schumer is on the record literally saying the only reason that you would oppose this is if you wanted fraud, right? I've got the video. I can play it. He literally said that year after year for decades. Why suddenly did that change? Democrats have a history. They let 4 to 10 million people flood this country during the years of Biden. Now, all of them say it's a bad idea. Like, none of them said anything during Biden. Suddenly, in forum after forum, they said we went too far, and which is interesting. They give them driver's licenses when they come in, and then they go, I can't believe Republicans dare think that this could be probably an issue. You literally let them into the country, you give them a license, and then you say, but there's no way that these folks would ever vote. I mean, why? That's absurd. I mean, it is ridiculous not to think that.
Well, I mean, this is the thing, right? So Sean's teeing up a straw person. There could be a problem. There may be a problem.
You lock your door, Dan, at night. Do you lock your door?
Sean, no,
do
actually,
you lock your door?
So Sean, here's the thing. You talked about the fact that there have been allegations of voter fraud since the 60s. Since the 60s. Multiple commissions, multiple investigations, multiple judges have ruled. So where the left says is you keep creating one of the things that happened. Wait, hold on.
That was Barack Obama that said
one of the things that happened in 2020 over and over and over was judges scolded Trump to say, you cannot come to the court and tell us we have to disprove your allegation. You have to bring us facts of alleged violations.
So you never do. Go back to my question. Let me ask you this. Do you lock your door at night?
No, I don't, Sean.
You don't lock the door to your house?
No, we don't. Because we don't worry that people, and I didn't when I lived in DC either. We didn't worry that people were going to break into our house. Every state has
you should definitely always lock your door.
Oh my God. I
mean, that's great.
Wait,
but
okay.
My point is, the reason I did this wasn't to call out your security system, but was to say most people don't lock their doors because they've been broken into. The bank doesn't put things in a vault because they've been held up. You protect what you value. And I think the idea of saying until you can prove there's massive voter fraud, we won't protect your ballot is insane.
Yeah. Okay. I agree with Sean on that because just because it's not proof doesn't mean there won't be an issue in the future. But wait, I just want to say, like, my thought on the Dems right now is, like, at some point they could look like the boy who cried wolf here. Like, I get that they are concerned about what happened in 2020. Totally understand that, right? But, like, this is an issue that's popular with the American public. And if you really do think that Republicans are going to try to screw with the midterms, like, wouldn't you wait until like that actually happens to raise an alarm? Because you raise the alarm now.
The catch-22 on elections is this, and I've gone through 2 recounts. The issue is this, and Dan wants to talk about cases. Go back and read a lot of what these cases actually said, what the judges said, which is there is no redress, right? So the election occurred, you didn't bring it up before the election, therefore there's no recourse. So you can't say, okay, well, now that there's fraud and now that we've proven that 5 people voted illegally, what do? The election already occurred. We can't call for a new election. So it's a very catch-22, and this is where Democrats have created the perfect mousetrap. They let people into the country, they give them a license, which is what you need to register to vote. And they say, well, they'll never break the law again when it comes to this. And oh, by the way, then you can't audit the voter rolls to see who it was, because they've made that illegal as well. So the mousetrap is perfect.
Sean, well, hold on a second.
Very quickly, we should also mention this.
Sean said it 5 times now. We did not give them driver's license, Sean. I know the right is upset. Texas and Florida are the 2 biggest states with illegal immigrants, my man. Are you telling me that Ron DeSantis and the Texas governor handed out driver's license to illegals? Of course not. You don't have to answer the question. It's so absurd. So, I mean, look, I get it. The whole reason we put this topic on here was not to relitigate J6 and all the conspiracy theories. The whole reason that I think we put it on here was both parties are getting so fired up that the other is trying to steal elections that I do think like this is going to become more and more of an issue, and there will probably be some combustible points.
Can I just make one point? I'll read you this. And again, I'm glad to, I'm well aware of which party started this on redistricting. So I'll let Dan chastise me when it comes to redistricting. This is the Virginia ballot, the referendum that's going to be put in front of Virginia voters in the Commonwealth in April. Okay. This is how Democrats have framed this issue. Should the Constitution of Virginia be amended to allow the General Assembly to temporarily adopt new congressional lines to restore fairness in upcoming elections?
Okay. If you're in power, you get to write those things.
No, I get it. But that's like, and again, I'm not, hey, look, my view is when you get it, like, God bless them, like you win an election. But the idea that Republicans got hammered for Texas, which the DOJ told them they needed to do, and they took advantage of it. Fair enough. DOJ said that one district needed to be redrawn. So they took advantage of the entire situation. I will admit that. But to then go into Virginia and say, we're restoring temporary fairness, you go from a 6-5 to a 10-1. You're going to have 5 congressional districts in Southwest Virginia start in Arlington. That's not fairness. Now, if you want to just say, screw it, we want an election, I'm fine with that. But don't lie. And right now, that's a lie, what you're telling me.
Sean, it's a ballot initiative. People can vote it down then. You don't like it, vote it down.
I will. But I'm just saying that, like, you talk about stealing
and river Republicans. You got caught with your pants down, and it's not fun.
Can I just, I know we were moving into redistricting, which is the second part of the segment that we wanted to get to, but can I just flag really quick this the Save America Act on steroids that's moving through the House, because it would also ban universal voting by mail, prohibit the counting of ballots received after Election Day. It gives the Department of Homeland Security access to voter rolls and prohibits voters from giving sealed mailed ballot packets to someone else for delivery, which is allowed in 18 states. Like, Sean, there's got to be some risk here for Republicans, like, going too far on this with the mail-in voting thing, right? Because there were a couple examples, I think, in Playbook this morning, or maybe it was in Axios. I can't remember where I read it, but there have been examples where Republicans were behind on Election Day, and ballots that, were sent in that were counted a day or two later, even though they were postmarked on Election Day, ended up winning. So, like, the mail-in voting thing, I don't quite understand that, and I wonder if there could be more blowback.
So let me make 2 points on this, and I'll lead with the positive for Dan. I do think that requiring ID and citizenship is a no-brainer, right? And I don't think that should be in question for anybody.
Agreed.
Going beyond that, I agreed with what my colleague here on the left has said in the past, which is, if we as Republicans go down the path about dictating time and place and manner of elections, which is constitutionally something that has been awarded to the states, then when we lose a majority at some point, God forbid, then Democrats will have the full right to say, you did it, we will do it. So I just stole Dan's talking point, because I agree with him beyond requiring what I don't think is controversial, which is that you actually have to be a citizen to vote. Time, place, and manner are constitutional duties awarded to the state. And I think we've got to be careful. I would much rather see an effort to empower states to do this and use a lot of that money that the president has and his capital to get the states to do these kind of reforms And so that's it. The second thing is, and this is what I want to, this is where I want to make sure I'm clear. There is a big difference between absentee ballots, which I and the president and Republicans support for overseas military personnel and people who are sick or have a thing. Virginia had that forever. Every state and territory had absentee ballots, and it was never a problem. It was Democrats that wanted to move to universal ballots for everyone on voter rolls, which is, as I noted, in the 2005 Jimmy Carter Baker Commission, ripe for fraud. And there is no one in the world that can tell me that when you send a ballot to every single person's mailbox, that doesn't have an element of fraud. It just doesn't even pass the smell test. There is a big difference. No one could not vote absentee in this country in any state or territory prior to these reforms. This idea that you need 90 days and we need to mail a ballot to everyone is absurd.
Dan, respond real quickly, and then we'll move on. We could keep
Yeah,
talking
I mean,
about
look, just
elections
so
all
the,
day.
Just say yes.
The comedy of all of this is, do you know who had the most aggressive mail-in voting plan in 2024? If you guessed the Trump campaign and Susie Wiles, you would be correct, my friends. And if you ought to know which state they have benefited the most from, that would be Florida, where your next governor, Byron Donald, said, oh, I disagree with this new bill. In Florida, we do it right. So
They do it right.
Of course, in red states where mailing is common and used by Republicans, all is well. But in blue states, there could be fraud. Therefore,
No. Just to be clear, Florida can actually count ballots and get them in. I would have.
I think Al Gore may have a question for you
we
on
don't
that.
have to worry about postmarks. We don't have to worry about signature verification. And hey, mail it in when you want.
Hold on. All right. Just one quick historical fun fact. Sean, in 2000 in Florida, were all the ballots counted postmarked?
I believe.
Don't worry, I'll answer
judge.
for
I
you.
believe the judge ruled what, 4 counties, 5 counties.
And finish the sentence. We're not postmarked, but we'll count them anyway.
All right.
Somewhere Al Gore is sitting here, loves the Republican new philosophy.